Hey, oh, it's live. Let's go. What it do, y'all? This is where we at. Your favorite regional live stream show. Checking in with your favorite Black revolutionaries, Amber, Chanel, Jess, and other niggas who might pop on because people be late. You know. So speaking of Chanel, um, you want us to do an intro for you? How you feeling? You being muted for me. So Chanel is driving. We're gonna practice safe driving skills, and I'm gonna intro them for them. So, as y'all know, Chanel is in Louisville doing on the ground work with BLM Louisville there, helping to lead the different teams that are doing community work based in Black liberation. Jess, you want to intro yourself?
Sure. Hey, y'all. Jess from Indianapolis with BLM doing some bail fund work, bail support work, community organizing, political education work, activist training work, cop watch training, and reproductive justice work statewide.
Bet. What's up, y'all? Oh, Chanel, go ahead.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say she left me a little short. um, but I'm also the state consultant for Sister Song, coordinating reproductive justice work across the state and what it means to put Black and Brown people back on the forefront of reproductive justice. And we mean that. I'm on my way to the Capitol now to do some jail support work. So that work that Jess was bringing up, because our babies that are queer and trans are on the the Capitol this morning, and I'm hoping that they are doing their thing, because we have that's part of the updates that we have. Go ahead, Amber.
Yeah, so it's Amber, y'all favorite Memphis nigga, doing liberations work here in Memphis, with official BLM Memphis, leading a lot of the work around Justice for Tyree and what it looks like to pass tangible police reforms in our local government here. But not just passing those, but also modeling that reform for other places to pass similar legislation. So I've been doing a lot of like policy work, activism, on the ground, support stuff. Um, and yeah, we just want to talk about where we are in movement spaces. I know there's a lot happening all throughout the state, really, of Tennessee, but also in Kentucky and Indianapolis. We're all in session right now, legislative session, and we are all of our supermajorities are passing the same extremist bills, even as children are murdered in a violent mass shooting in Nashville. They still were like, well, fuck that. Let's go ahead and pass these bills to make the legal age to obtain a permit 18. That seems like the best thing to do in this situation. So, we still have a very active fight here in Tennessee, but I know y'all have the same thing going on in Kentucky and Indy. Legislation wise, I know we've already passed the drag ban bills here, as well as passing bills to remove gender affirming care. And I know folks are still fighting for that in Kentucky right now, but in Indy, they've already passed some of that as well. So, just if you want to give some context about that.
Sure. Like you said, the supermajority is trying to break everybody's soul. In Indiana, we're up against a few things. In addition to the anti trans legislation, we're seeing book bans, we're seeing them passing bills denying gender affirming care to youth. We're also pending a Supreme Court case for our state Supreme Court, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen for what was a near total abortion ban. Abortion is still legal in Indiana. So if you need help getting an abortion, you can contact the Hoosier Abortion Fund at 812 727 4423. You can text or call that number. That number is associated with All Options. I'm the Indiana organizing manager for All Options. And something that we're working on right now is supporting reproductive justice statewide. I'll get into that in just a bit. I want to go back to what the anti-trans legislation and what the book bans are meaning. So we have a local organization here called it's a bookstore, and they do like a drag hour where drag queens come and they read books to promote literacy and community building. And they are actually fielding bomb threats now. So we're seeing the intersections of some of this anti-trans and this book ban legislation already meeting up in the middle. If you are able to, really encouraging people to build their literacy, not just their literacy around books, but also their media literacy. What does it mean to be able to look at news articles and to be able to engage online, whether it's social media or through news sources, and to be able to vet sources? Are you able to find an additional source if a particular news source is saying it? I know in the age of social media that we like to get into a rapid response, but when we promote literacy, we're teaching people what does it mean to step out of rapid response and to vet the sources that are bringing the information to you. I think that's going to be especially important, especially as we see some of what's being happening down south, whether it's in Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, make its way to the Midwest. We need to make sure that folks understand how to engage information, how to share information, and how to make sure that the information that they have is true. On the reproductive standpoint, All Options is working on building an activist squad in some key congressional districts. Right now, the congressional districts that we're working towards are District 7, which covers Indianapolis and Franklin, Indiana. District 9, which covers Bloomington. Bloomington is home to our Pregnancy Resource Center. The Pregnancy Resource Center has everything from menstrual hygiene products to housing the Hoosier Diaper Program. If you're in need of diapers in Indiana, you can not only engage the Indiana diaper programs that are available, but if you're local to Bloomington, or if you're a recipient of Hoosier Abortion Fund funding or support, you can engage the All Options Pregnancy Resource Center for assistance with getting diapers in your home if you're already parenting and have that need. And we're also moving into South Bend, which is District 2. Ideally, we want to see these people be able to convene locally, to hold conversations, to build literacy around reproductive justice, abortion access, and abortion rights. We want to make sure that they're able to determine what their community needs are and how to address them locally. We're going to be helping them determining what their personal and digital safety might look like, establishing supportive spaces so that people can be both scared and empowered. And then we're going to be kind of training them so that they're scaling up in their activism. We want to make sure that folks feel as comfortable and confident having community conversations as they do holding fundraising events, because whether or not abortion is deemed to be legal in our states, regions, areas, nation, people are still going to need to access that medical care. We want to make sure that folks feel empowered and confident in tabling at different events, and then eventually moving into having field organizers where they can co-lead biweekly or monthly initiatives, launch initiatives locally, and join in on our reproductive roundtable that we're relaunching statewide to help with some strategic planning. So we're really excited about, expanding our statewide access, making sure that folks understand what it takes to be an activist, and then engaging people where they are so that they understand how to get plugged in.
Come through, Jess. Come through, Indiana. I love being able to have Jess on here and all the different places that Jess organized so that folks are really listening to like what this work looks like. It's a lot. Um, and where you might be able to fit in. So a lot of times don't take in everything that somebody is doing. A lot of what we do is actually really be in this conduit for different areas, weaving information and making sure the most important thing I heard in there is like definitely scale up from activism to organizing, because we're going to need all of us, especially as we move forward. Like I said, I'm on my way to Frankfurt to hopefully make sure that folks who want to take particular action are safe. Planning is always better than not, absolutely, and the things that we need to do. So that's another conversation for another day. But anyway, the omnibus bill here in Kentucky, SB 150, has been deemed the most dangerous trans and gender nonconforming bill that has crossed the United States. This year, we have seen over 300 uh, targeted bills to TGNC people, that's transgender nonconforming, as an acronym, move across the country. And one of the most important things that I want to name about this bill um, is that it absolutely, and I know a lot of times we begin things by saying this, has nothing to do about how you individually feel. There is an obligation that healthcare workers have, just the same way underneath these abortion bills, to people when they come within their scope of work to receive care. We are talking about the human right to receive care in this country. And it has been under attack um, for almost 25 years now, but of course longer. But we're talking about as we have been making some strides around insurances and who can receive health care, Obamacare, and what is happening at state levels, we have seen Republicans utilize the healthcare system as a tool of warfare on folks of the least vulnerable. We are in a moment right now. We are still in a pandemic. A pandemic don't go away. I'm so sorry. No matter how many masks we don't wear, where we have saw people who are disabled become more disabled or no longer with us. We have seen visually able-bodied people become disabled. We have also seen folks taken into this long COVID, but also other healthcare concerns that have come up in issues, all due to the fact that we are removing policy and people are following it. So when folks say, I don't want to vote, and when folks say, oh, you have to, and when folks say, oh, it doesn't matter about the policy, and when folks say it's all about the policy, it is about all of those things and how we move those together. And I think Jess did a great job of talking about and weaving through what it looks like when policy is failing us and what we must do as citizens of these states and these local places, and how we can move those things. What I want to lift up is the mutual aid that must take place when these things happen. um, while we are talking about like what that legislation looks like, what it deals with, and all those things, all of that shit is great. And I think me and Jess was cracking up talking about yesterday, just because we be kikiing, y'all know how it goes, about the data and wanting to utilize that. We are absolutely talking about bodies. We are talking about human beings. We are talking about people who absolutely already exist. And because you exist, this is reproductive justice. Because you exist, you deserve care. You deserve to be able to raise your family, to not raise your family. You deserve to be able to detail what you want for your body and what you don't want for your body. And that is not up to discussion from anybody else unless you have consulted them for healthcare needs. And at this point, they either need to be somebody you really, really trust or a healthcare professional. So when we're talking about like what are the other things that can happen, we have to really hunker down on what mutual aid and what solidarity economies absolutely look like, and how we work collectively together to help take care of us. We are all going to all go through our own individual things, but in that we can find support. um, I think I'm trying to think of like something collectively we had in the middle of 2020. BLM Memphis and BLM Indy came down at different times. But the first thing was really checking in on organizers and how they were doing, trying to get folks to slow down, which is something that we do. We had did that with BLM Indy when they first popped off. I don't think a lot of people remember, but they really started off the 2020 moment because they had officers kill 3 people within 8 hours in their city. that was really stressful for BLM and other Black organizers up there. And so you have to check in on your folks and tell them to just calm down. What is it, something I can take off of you? Do we need to go? And that's a question to ask to see what type of work you can pick up. And a lot of times that work is to take care of each other. The same thing with Memphis, checking in on Amber so that Amber can be ready and to present the narrative that is being presented to support what it looks like to actually build the power that we need and to help other people see that power. Because we're going to be in crisis mode when an emergency comes up, but we don't have to be. We can make sure that these systems already exist. What does it look like to get medication? What does it look like to get food? How do we break through those barriers and how do we build those things? So I want to give a shout out to Kentucky Health Justice Network, one of the dopest grassroots organization that's also Black trans led in this state of Kentucky, that has the arm of trans health as well as the abortion work that they do, getting people safely to abortions in other states and educating them on reproductive justice, abortion needs, how to take care of yourself, period, and helping folks get the trans care that they need. And so if you have time, I think it's like at KY Trans Health on Instagram. I'm acting my age right now on the Instagram, and then on the Twitter, uh, just go to the search box. Go to the box where the magnifying glass be at. Press the look thing, and then search for Kentucky uh, uh, Kentucky Health Justice Network. There you go. There you go. Because I sure did not have prepared those handles.
It happens. It happens. It's okay. Um, so I want to make sure we also do some call to actions. So I know Chanel is headed to the state house. Do y'all have any specific call to actions there, Chanel, for folks who aren't in Frankfurt or just throughout Kentucky can join in or can support what's going on there?
Yeah, follow Kentucky Health Justice Network. Also, definitely subscribe to anything that the ACLU puts out. That's the American Civil Liberty Union in any of our states, because these are the people that will take it a step further when we are talking about how rights are violated and the actions they will produce. They will have some actions for folks to take, which may be to like show up, sign petitions, things like that. Also, subscribe, hit the little notification on any of our social media, because we are absolutely putting out action steps as we are organizing um, with lawmakers and other community leaders on what it looks like to beat back a lot of these very strong lobbyists, um, very right wing organizations, but also corporate. These are corporate entities that are really pushing fascism. And I know that's come up a lot within the few years that people are like, what is fascism? Do not forget that white supremacy sits within wallets and moves a corporate arm to make sure that we either have or don't have, making us have and have nots. Um, we definitely want folks to begin a journey about like what it looks like to step up for folks who do not see their own voice. And I know that that really sounds like advocating, and I've talked against that, but I'm not talking about advocating. I am talking about where you absolutely get educated around what that looks like, and you are able to speak truth into power whenever you come in contact with anything that sounds like bigotry. So it might sound like taking up bystander training. It might be organizer training, and maybe you're not organizing right away, but you are absolutely stepping yourself into these places so you can learn how to organize, which means building power, power mapping, understanding your targets, understanding what power they have, and the different tactics it takes to move certain pieces of that power. It also looks like mutual aid. What is it that I do well that I can help somebody else do well? And let me tell you, like healing work is some of the most easiest to show up at. A lot of people think that they have to perform it. It's not for you to perform, it's for you to receive and for you to practice. And so, for any of us to transform in this moment, I am really lifting up a piece that I've been sitting with since the Nashville shooting. Um, it I'm trying not to be angry because there was another mass shooting at a school in Denver during a period where our comrades in Denver were pushing back against the city because the city doesn't want a non-governmental emergency response organization, and they could not get out their action because the school shooting took place. The lack of our awareness of that school shooting, and then to amplify this school shooting, puts priority over the fact that we only care about gun violence when it happens to children and in mass shootings. And I'm saying that for particular reasons. And I really want us to understand what it looks like to move transformatively moving forward. So I know that these aren't some very clear cut call to actions. They are absolutely to move you out of a space that you're comfortable in and that is not necessarily helping the people like us move these things forward. I absolutely want folks to know the difference between um, a tactic and a direct action. I really want people to know that they can either attend healing spaces or go fix soup. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be funny in that, but those are things that people absolutely need. Hearing the things that people need first and knowing what you can and cannot do, not only in that moment, but to prepare. Maybe you don't even start your mutual aid until a month or a year later, but at least you are in those spaces to cultivate yourself. And I think that's what I'm really asking folks to do. Hey, Bookie.
No, I think that's an important ask because I mean not everything is it should be wrapped up in rapid response. I agree with that. And there's no sustaining movements or like making any real tangible change when we're all just responding to rapid response with no actual strategic organizing behind it. Jess, do you have any comments as your fake background is peeling away?
Y'all did not have to get on my fake background. It's a security measure. I can't help it that I'm digitally secure right now. Like, be
No
upset
one
about
is
it.
coming for you, Jess.
You ain't got no baby grand. We know you ain't got no baby grand.
The
I
fans are
do,
not
because I
at your
play
door.
piano. Because
The
I
fans
play
are
piano.
not at your door, Jess.
You don't know
Be
that.
for real. BFF.
No, I agree with a lot of or everything that Chanel said. Healing practices are absolutely a way for us to sustain ourselves during this work. And I think that people think of activism or organizing as just rapid response, as just responding or being reactive to the state. If the state's purpose, like Toni Morrison said, the very function of racism is to exhaust us. The state's purpose is to exhaust, isolate, and criminalize. So, what are we doing in response to that strategically so that we're not exhausting ourselves in the moment? Because it's a long run. I think if you look at not just the uprisings of 2020, but also like Ferguson, if you look at what's happening right now in Stop Cop City, that's something that is happening nationally, globally, all of this. And having an understanding of what's happening and figuring out where to plug in is really going to be key. I think that like if you're not ready to go to Atlanta to stand with the folks who are stopping Cop City, they've put out calls to action for people to write to the folks that are incarcerated. They're holding organizers and activists and protesters right now without bail, and those people still
Hostages.
need to feel that they have not
Political
been isolated
prisoners.
from the community that they are standing up from. Stop Cop City is not just about abolition. Abolition is at the forefront of it because we deserve to have a say in what's happening in our communities. But we also need to look at what it means to be environmentally racist. What does environmental justice look like? If you're taking a stretch of land, on stolen land, you're choosing to enter the deforestation process and you're not offering anything in response to the residents' concerns. They've already said that it floods down there. They've already said that when it rains that they're concerned about the runoff. They're concerned about what it's doing to their property and to their neighborhoods. And you want to clear out an entire area of land to train the cops who are learning from Israeli forces who are anti-Palestinian, the cops who have killed Tyree Nichols, who have killed Breonna Taylor, who have killed Drajon Reed and Mikael Rose. They are all going to be able to access this land to be able to further engage and enact the state's violence against us. So activism and organizing, there's always a place for you. Write to the folks who are incarcerated. Make sure that you're showing up when people are screening documentaries. If we think about the civil rights movement, I mean, like Chanel said, it takes everyone. You don't necessarily have to be on the front lines. We need people to make sandwiches. We need people to make care packages. We need people to stop by and to be like, you know what? I couldn't come protest today, but can I pick up your laundry and drop it off for you so that that's one less thing that you have to do? How are we caring for each other and making it a politic along with our organizing and along with our activism so that we understand if something happens to one of us and that state sanctioned violence imparts itself on our lives, how can we trust that the isolation that the state is attempting to make us a part of isn't the reality? Because when they isolate us away from each other, that's how you get informants. That's how you get folks who have gone against their ancestral charge of being revolutionary or ushering in Black liberation. We have to make sure that we're staying connected to each other. We have to make sure that we understand what each other's needs and triggers are. And we have to make sure that we're operating in our capacity, and that when we're stretching outside of our capacity, that we're naming to the people around us, here's how I can return to baseline so that I can be good for myself.
Yeah, you said
And
a word.
need we always need folks looking at policy. We always need court watch. We always need city county council watch. We always need mayoral candidate town hall watches. If you are a nosy person and you just like getting into the weeds of things, call up your prosecutor's office and ask if they have a community outreach person and have them explain cases to you. That's what they're there for. Log into, the bail funds that might be community or institutional and figure out what the work is and how you can get plugged in. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's extravagant or something that will go viral, but figuring out what your place is instrumental in this moment. And I'm thinking of something that I saw on Twitter yesterday from an organizer out of Atlanta named Julian, and he was talking about making sure that
I
whatever skill that you have.
love
Love Julian. Shout out to Julian. Making sure that whatever skill that you have, that you're prepared to weaponize it and to grow it and to upscale it in this fight against state sanctioned violence. That's what we're asking you to do. So if you're cooking meals, how can we upscale that to support people so that they don't feel isolated? If you're really passionate about handwritten letters, how can we upscale that to make sure that people are able to engage it so that they're not feeling isolated? It's time to get connected. It's been time to get connected. And like Julian said, we need to start to upscale and skill up the skills that we do have to weaponize it against the state, because they're already using the weapons that are at their disposal to trample us.
No, I agree, Jess. My Julian's the reason why I keep saying stop Cop City to the Cop City stop, because he got this rap that's like really good about Cop City, and that just be in my head over and over again. But the points that you made were great. I really want you to talk about the point. Just say one more time about the state's goal is to exhaust, isolate. Just say that part one more time.
Right. I keep quoting Toni Morrison in that effect because she said that the purpose of racism, the function of racism, is to exhaust us. And the state's purpose as an agent of institutional racism and white nationalism and white supremacy is to exhaust, separate, and isolate us from the communities that we are seeking to have, because they understand that that is a strategic tactic in abolition. When they can separate and isolate us from community and feed us with doubt and make sure that we're criminalized for exercising what they say are our constitutional rights, then they consider that to be a win. They only win when we stop doing what it is that we're called to do.
That part. No, I agree
I want to
completely.
quote another Black liberationist from the Move family, Mama Ramona Africa. My heart is with her, so please make sure, you know, if y'all know her, hit her up, whatever. Because I know like she's getting up there, and but said at U.S. Social Forum one time that anyone that does that, what Jess is talking about, and folks are seeing it and hearing it. And sometimes we think that we're being graceful and sitting in spaces with these people. Know that anytime that they disrupt the work that you are doing for liberation, they are your enemy. And I know that that sounds way stronger, but that is absolutely true. When anybody disrupts what you have been called to do, when you find out what your duty is, when you bring a commitment to a particular type of work within the liberation scope, and someone is dead set on disrupting that, dead set on causing harm and damage to those spaces without any type of ongoing accountability, and accountability isn't a one time thing, it is a production, a series of practices of not only taking care of yourself, but also providing transparency to everyone that you're with and in the work that you do, so that we're all doing that together. You have to remove yourself from that space. And we're not saying that you can't work with certain people, or that you have to always make that proclamation, but you have to feel that, and that it is absolutely a trauma response, thinking that you have to work with certain people, or maybe if I just try to get somebody to look at the way that I see things. That's not the goal of the work. The goal of the work is liberation, and that is a pathway of most definitely taking care of ourselves, continual healing, and then moving it to a space of liberation. Abolition is the call to action. That's the call to action.
Not you just stole my line, but I like that. Abolition is the call to action, nigga. You know what it do? What's the Black liberation looking like? Um, so for Memphis, our current call to action is definitely for folks to use their current skills, as Jess was saying. You know, if you can make some meals, if you can help us with rides, if you can donate some money so we can pay for people's parking at City Hall, all of those skills are needed. Like, you don't always have to. If you can't show up, that's cool. What can you do? We have a call to action link at justicefortyree.com. So it's justice the number 4 tyre.com, or you can go to bit.ly / justice in all caps, the number 4, and then Tyree in all caps. And there's a call to action entire Google spreadsheet that we keep updated with what's going on right now. So we've already passed 2 reforms in Memphis. One of those reforms, which will be removing unmarked cars from traffic enforcement, is going through the state house right now as well. Our next city council meeting is on the 11th of April, and we're pushing for the pretextual stop ordinance to be passed. So it's on its 3rd reading. Our city charter requires that everything is read and voted on 3 times before it can become law. So after it's passed on the 3rd reading, because we're only going for it being passed, then it'll be law immediately. And then there's also an ordinance that the city attorney wrote up that he's calling the Tyree Nichols Justice and Policing Act, which ain't got no kind of justice in it at all. It does not keep Tyree alive in any way. They are attempting to codify the MPD handbook, the Memphis Police Department handbook, which will only make it harder to repeal different pieces of policy later on if there's issues with them. Currently, that handbook is, it can just be edited by the police chief or police director whenever, right? But if we codify that as an actual city law or city ordinance, it makes it way harder to change it. And we know that that's a direct response to us being able to get these other reforms through swiftly. They told us that ordinance will be used to put all of the current ordinances that are passed into one ordinance, and then they will repeal the other ones. But all those current ordinances are not in the Tyree Justice and Policing Act. The only thing that's in there is the one about unmarked cars. It doesn't include the Data Transparency Act, which is one of the biggest wins that we got, which will require that anytime the police pull someone over, whether they're in a car, on a bike, walking, on a skateboard, in a park, wherever they are, if a police officer pulls someone over, no matter the mode of transportation, they have to report and cite that. Because currently you only find out about what happens at a traffic stop if that person is given a citation. So they get a citation and that's recorded. But if they stop somebody, they don't give them a citation. What happens during that stop isn't necessarily recorded or reported anywhere. Their body cams might get it if they have them on, because they turn them off every other day. But other than that, there really is no way to report and hold accountable the police for what they're doing during traffic stops. So that's not actually in that ordinance. And when I spoke with Tyree's family, they were very pissed off that they would, one, name something after him, because it all looks like they're just placating and playing around and trying to act like they're really doing something. We know it's all for show. The cameras have left. Now that nobody's crying on CNN, and ain't no big stories popping out, then people want to try to backpedal and backtrack on what they promised to do. And we as a community aren't going for that. So our current calls to action are on that bit.ly link. You can call, email, show up to city council meetings. If y'all need a ride, there's a link there to select that you need a ride. We've been doing carpools. We'll have food and snacks there at the meetings. Just come, hold a sign. And if you want to do public comments, you can do that as well, just to show that your support for the ordinances that we're trying to get passed, and also talk about why we don't need the Tyree Nichols Justice and Policing Act, because it is literally just a name. That's it. There's nothing, there's no teeth in it. There's nothing tangible in it. And I think it truly shows the way that we disrespect folks once they've been murdered, right? So we love to use the spotlight in the national news to talk about how this shouldn't be happening here. But once we feel like the cameras are gone, we start backpedaling and saying things in public safety committee like, the reason for the militarization is all the assault weapons. And we live in a police state because of all the assault weapons, because that's what our chairman, Martavis Jones, said in city council, because he said, and for the 30 people watching, because they also like to make jokes about how people aren't paying attention to local government. We've packed out every city council meeting for the last 2 months, and we've shown up to the public safety committee and the other committee meetings at 8 a.m. when they start, and been there for 4 and 5 hours a day. And we've watched online. There was over 100 people watching the committee meeting. And I think that it's interesting as public officials that they have the audacity and the gall to let some bullshit like that come out of their mouth, because they think that no one is paying attention anymore. The attention's left. But like I told them in the last city council meeting, this is definitely a new day for Memphis, and folks are paying attention. And so you can try to play around and think that, over time, people will just stop showing up and stop holding you accountable, but that's not going to happen. This is the last time we're going to let somebody be beat to death on camera. And that looks like us getting all of these reforms passed. And if they're not, we're going to turn up and y'all going to see what happens. So we definitely call for folks to pull up. If you are, in a different place, we got places you can stay. You pull up and come to a city council meeting, because this last one, it's gonna be some smoke. I can feel it based off the comments that have been coming through the public safety committee and the other committees in the morning. The different things they've been saying. They're now proposing to give $15 million more to police officers to give them higher salaries, because in Memphis, when you kill people, we reward you. In Memphis, when you murder somebody on camera, when you disrespect people and terrorize them and accost them on the street, we reward you with more money. That's what you need. You don't need to be taken out of the force. You need more money, because that's the solution. So we fighting that as well, and calling out Chase Carlisle, the white moderate who likes to pretend like he cares about Black folks on votes, but then goes in committee and says super off the wall anti-Black things like, let's give the police $15 million. And although I acknowledge that public safety also includes, affordable housing and public transit and parks, I still think the police need the most amount. We'll give y'all $5 million for that stuff, but $15 million should go to police, because that's what's really going to keep us safe, which is ludicrous, which we all know. So I implore folks, no matter where you at, to pull up.
And I seen y'all had some cute little political education.
We did. We did a great little teaching about giving public comment. We did a teaching about pretextual stops. I think what folks mostly push back about here, especially the older community, because when they hear like less policing and us pushing back against pretextual stops, they don't understand the difference between a pretextual stop and an actual crime. So pretextual stops aren't criminal. There's no criminal like TCA code for having a broken tail light, for having something in your rearview mirror, for your insurance being expired. That's actually not a crime. That's an administrative law that you're required, it's a financial requirement to have these things, not the brake lights, but just the insurance. But it's not an actual crime. And police are using those things as pretextual stops to then try to find a way to criminalize someone. And so we did some teachings around that. We have a teaching coming up with City Councilwoman Patrice Robinson, who's in the council district that I'm in, where I'm going to talk with some seniors about what exactly pretextual stops are, and also decriminalizing our thoughts around policing, because I know for a lot of folks, that the thought of crime and punishment is just so deeply ingrained and you don't know any other options. So what does it look like to look for resources and seek out resources and assistance for folks versus criminalizing them? Because the example she gives me is like, well, people are saying that they're recklessly driving and they're speeding and da, da, da. I said, well, that is a crime. That's not a pretextual stop. If someone's recklessly driving, there's a crime for that, right? But there's nothing criminal about someone having a brake light out on their car. So what would it look like to just fix their brake light? And we've been doing brake light clinics through Decarcerate Memphis for about a year now, doing just that, and like minor fixes on folks' cars. She said someone complained about somebody had their bumper hanging off on their car and they were holding it by a bungee cord. And their neighbor was saying, like, hey, we got to call the police because they could pop off and murder somebody. And I explained to her, what does it look like to just ask them how much it would cost to fix their bumper or offer some services for them to go and get their bumper fixed? Everything doesn't have to involve the police and everything doesn't have to be criminalized, but we have that psyche of, if that person has a bumper messed up on their car, they're a criminal. I don't know how we went from, poor people being criminals. I think it's that tied in anti-blackness. But some people are just poor. I got a crack in my windshield right now and I'm not going to fix it. And that doesn't make me a criminal.
Criminalizing the very conditions that the state is responsible for.
And then furthering that by calling the state, aka your city council or county commissioner, and asking for more police presence because you saw somebody driving down the street with a broken bumper. Make it make sense.
Instead of creating a program that could, just like they have expungement programs and they have second chance programs, why not have a program? Because hell, ain't nobody fixing those streets. I think we could say comfortably in Kentucky, in Tennessee, and Indiana, it's not like we're seeing the money for the infrastructure being devoted to the streets or to the folks who are navigating the streets. So why not take the money that's literally missing from there to help the residents be in compliance?
Same questions I've asked. And we actually have programs like that here. One of my friends, Hunter, has a community carpenter project where they will do small carpentry projects for community members who can't afford them, like building a wheelchair ramp for somebody or fixing some minor leaks in their roofs, like helping elderly members who have issues going on with their houses. Like we have some programs, some community-based programs like that here. But I would like to see them expanded out more. And I think that we could always do that. But if people would just ask instead of assuming that we have to call the cops, then we can say, well, hey, actually, we have this program. With Decarcerate, we can fix your brake light for you for free. We have a auto shop here that donates the brake lights. We have mechanics that donate their time, and we'll just fix it for you. You don't have to call the police on that person. But people don't ask those questions. We immediately go to jail, and I'd be like, that's crazy. So I'm hoping through doing these different teachings and different political education pieces, that folks will push further away from using that criminalized language and also creatively think about ways to decarcerate not only our minds, but our actions. Abolition is creative, as folks often say, and I agree, because the way that we, indoctrinate kids through the school to prison pipeline from a very early age is meant to remove all that imagination and creativity from them. So you can't think of any other possible solutions because you're taught crime and punishment from jump. And I would love to see folks, as we're doing more political education, have that evolution of, you're right. We don't have to call the police for that. And what does it look like for us as a community to govern ourselves and help each other? One really cool program that we have here that was started by a local organizer, JD, is called Barter Up 901, where they barter goods and resources. So like, if you want a tattoo, I can braid your hair for you. Or y'all want to come to this movie night, we're going to do a garden project before and in my backyard, and then I'll do a movie night for y'all as a barter of resources and skills versus, having to use money for everything. And I love that because, that's what our ancestors did. Like, that's what our not everything has to involve money. Like our community, Black folks specifically, used to barter all the time. And so we have all kinds of like really cool programs building up here that are not involving police or the carceral state in any way, but still provide resources for our community. And I'm glad to see those being branched out more and sustained. The last thing I say is I really do agree with what Jess said about not being isolated and exhausted by the state. I think that going to Louisville and other places in 2020 really showed me what it looks like to build up that support. And because of that, we aren't exhausted right now. We aren't isolated, and we are stronger as a community, and we are able to make these real tangible changes because we aren't burnt out and depleted. And that's what I think that experience has taught me and other organizers here, like how to work through that. So I'm grateful for that experience and just meeting y'all niggas and being in community with you so that we're able to continue to build out this abolitionist dream.
But I do want to bring up, I love the build out. So I definitely want to lift that up, that like from mutual aid, we then build the systems that are actually possible and exist. Amber said our ancestors used to do that, but hell, our cousins across Pan Africa and the global south do this every day. They do not only depend on the state when the state wants to offer bits and pieces of things to keep you in their hands, right? Keep you docile. And I use that word because we sit and we wait on what they're going to do as if they actually give a fuck. I want to say that first because they do not. They are only doing things to maintain order and power. And the power that they use is corporatism, making sure that corporations are the ones that are protected first. And that is what policing does. It protects property and businesses and other things like that. There is not a prevention method that is produced through law enforcement. And that is what Amber is talking about with the pretextual stops, with calling police on folks just because you don't like what somebody say or y'all about to whatever. I also want to lift up that like that what Jess is talking about, that making sure we're in community with each other, checking in on folks, having that actual really um, real conversation removes white supremacy from spaces that we think that white supremacy builds. How we meet with each other, how we do work, how we want to see change happen. A lot of that is produced in the nonprofit industrial complex, but that's white supremacy. That patriarchal power absolutely tells us that we don't have to check in on each other. I just need you to do the work that you say you was going to do in XYZ, or paternalism or nepotism. That shit don't work. We have seen that shit kill folks time and time again. And what does it look like to better take care of yourself? What does it look like to show them that as liberation? Um, I wanted to lift up that yes, we did get sent down a consent decree. This has been all the rave and talk about like everything that has come down from 2020, and many of us that organize within the movement know that like several other jump off cities or spark cities have had consent decrees take place, and so studying what those other cities have done and what people are trying to do and not do is very much important. What I would need folks to understand is that the consent decree that is sent down by the federal government is a consent decree that is between the law enforcement agencies. So they're saying, yeah, we had to interview you or whatever, and we had to investigate what y'all's doing and all of this shit. But what we came to find out is you really are fucked up. But you know what, bruh? We ain't even getting ready to hold you. What we are going to do is we just going to tell you what we feel like you need to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like your homie that is really fucked up, and you telling them what they need to do, but you like, you could do this shit, but it don't really mean too much. What we can do is we need to figure out whether or not, some of the harsher things that you need to do are going to affect whether or not we can fund you. That's corporatism. So when I keep saying corporatism, that's what I'm talking about. That business transaction, or whether or not agencies, organizations, certain power structures get funded or not. That's corporatism. And what we don't need is organizations acting like corporate entities. What we do need is people to be held for murder, people to be held for rape, people to be held for those things. We would believe in the justice system if the justice system actually performed like the way that it says, and it does not. It doesn't. So one of the largest call to actions that folks have been having is like, you are naming some very grotesque ass things that these people have done. And if these people, these officers were on the street and had done these things to these people, and mind you, this is just 10% of what has taken place with people in Louisville. Like, this is not the full extent of what police forces do to folks. And I know we're talking about Louisville right now, but this is what police forces have always been known to do. And having unions and having contracts with cities only kind of maintain the type of abuse of actions and powers that they have. And so I'm so looking for a parking spot. So not saying those officers' names, say, you know what, y'all can go ahead and keep doing what the fuck y'all doing.
Ain't that one right there?
No, it is not. It says reserved on the ground. And that's what we are saying that they cannot do. What we are also saying is to the administration of our city, who knew about this consent decree and wanted to make these investments into LMPD about renovations to the headquarters and a new facility, wellness center to for LMPD specifically and only for them, is no, because you have not taken the consideration and the call to actions and the demands and the cries for help from the exact people that this consent decree has been naming for decades into consideration. Mothers are asking for housing to keep their children safe. Black families are like one of the most homeless group of people in Louisville right now. They may not be the people you see on the streets, but they are absolutely the people losing housing every day. We are looking at children turn to street life very dangerously, unorganized, because they do not have the what the fuck? Right. They do not have the means at home. They do not know what safety is. And many of these communities do not, which goes back to Amber's point that people are just calling police because they see something they don't agree with. I need to call the police, because then what the police gonna do? We are looking at housing that is dilapidating, and people who have owned their home for years and who cannot pay their mortgages have to pay grotesque amounts to the city, who can't even get their finances all the way together. And we don't see that type of investment made back into these communities. We don't see these exact people who have to pay these fines and fees to the city. We don't see the programs helping them pay for their housing when you literally have these people's information. So when we're talking about who needs the money for renovations, when we're talking about who needs money for health and wellness, that needs to go to those people. And I think the audacity of anybody in the Greenberg administration who wants to pull together any type of power around making sure that LMPD gets the things that they need over the community that they have terrorized for shit, how long?
Stop killing people first, and maybe we'll think about it. How about y'all
I
go?
ain't thinking about shit. I ain't thinking about shit, because fuck that shit. No,
Why y'all get
no.
rewarded for
As a
murdering people?
survivor, what you say?
Why you getting rewarded for murdering people? I don't understand. It ain't making sense. It's giving Cop City. I'm just
It's
saying.
giving Cop City.
Right in the
It's going back
headquarters,
and it's giving Cop City.
giving Cop City. I don't know.
So our other call to action, real quick, Amber, then you can go ahead because I gotta find a parking spot. Our main call to action is, if you have been victimized by LMPD, you need to tell them exactly what it is that you want. Call the mayor's office. I don't care who you call. Call any of the people that work for him and let them know what it is exactly that you need. And it isn't, oh, they're not gonna listen to me. We ain't got time for what they ain't getting ready to do. We don't have time for what we think that they not going to do. Show up at any event that they have and let them know what you need, more so than the bullshit that they putting on. I don't care if it's the little music fucking day that they have, a fucking ice cream pop up or some shit, or they celebrating technology software. I don't give a fuck what the event is. Go to the event. Make sure that your story is known, but also let him know to his face, because this is a part of the city that he refused to freely go jog his ass down, because that's what his little campaign was on. I'm gonna run around the city. Well, bitch, you ain't ran through here yet. To absolutely see the conditions in which you create by ignoring people. You are ignoring an entire group of people, young people, who made it to the streets to see officers who had detained them, abused them, accused them of crimes, planted shit on them. You are looking at families who are still displaced because we are not putting investment into housing. We are waiting years and years to try to come up with some cute little policy and shit. Shit's not cute. We are holding session after session of little bubblegum shops of like what we can do against violence. You feed and you house people, and you will stop the violence. So until you want to make investments in the people, fuck the police.
That part.
I love it. I'm gonna keep it quick with the call to action out of Indy. Making sure that folks have ways to get connected.
Mhm.
If you're interested in doing reproductive justice, you can go to the All Options website and fill out the volunteer interest form to get connected to the activist squad. Like I said, initially, we're going to be expanding out of those congressional districts in Indianapolis, Franklin, South Bend, and Bloomington, but we're also going to expand outside of that. We have a number of resources that are available for people who are seeking to make sure that they're able to exercise their reproductive choice, whether it's that you're in need of abortion services and you can contact the Hoosier Abortion Fund for that. We have a talk line that's a national resource where if you have questions about parenting, pregnancy, adoption, abortion, fertility, etc., you can get some peer support for that. Our peer supporters on the talk line are vetted and trained. They go through a rigorous 40-hour training before they even get to provide that peer support. We have Faith Aloud for folks who are needing that faith aspect of engaging whatever their reproductive choice is. We also have PALS, the workshops that are available for individuals and organizations who are seeking to be more curious about what they're doing. But you can get active in a number of those ways because we're already looking forward to the rest of 2023 and then the year of 2024 ahead of us. For the anti-trans and book banning legislation, we need to see folks at the state house. Not only the state house, but now is the time to start up your book clubs. Those book clubs that y'all really wanted to get popping in 2020, it's great that you had them. Let's recirculate them now so that we can make sure that we're building not only the reading literacy, but also the media and digital literacy. We need to know how to discern what information is true and how we can trust knowing that it's true. There's a rally that's being held at the State House this weekend by the ACLU in Indiana, and I believe it is Saturday. Doors open at 10 and the rally starts at 11. BLM Indy is continuing our Cop Watch series. This is in regards to a bill that is pending in the House. House Bill 1186 makes it a Class C misdemeanor if you engage, or it says if you knowingly or intentionally approach within 25 feet of law enforcement while they're engaging in the execution of law enforcement. So basically, it puts a 25-foot space in between residents who might have previously participated in Cop Watch or who might just be curious about what's going on with their loved one or a community member or our unhoused population. And it gives police an additional barrier to be able to commit the crime of state sanctioned violence against us. We're continuing our Cop Watch series. You can follow BLM Indy on Facebook or on Twitter to see when the next Cop Watch series are. We're going to build up that network in response to House Bill 1186. It's always a good time to get connected. There's always stuff to do. If you have questions about anything, feel free to hit any of us up on or off social media. I saw someone asking for resources on curricula or literacy campaigns for activism and organizing. Absolutely start with We Do This Till We Free Us by Miriam Kaba. She, along with Andrea Ritchie, have built up an abolition network, including interrupting criminalization. Amber has No More Police. The Interrupting Criminalization network is a vast network that has everything from, I believe they have like a phone line where it's a lab and you can call in with conflict that you're experiencing or that you've seen, and they can assist you with either a restorative or transformative response to that conflict to build up in your neighborhood. They have abolition toolkits. It's a wonderful resource, and I'll make sure that I put that in the chat as well for folks. But like we said, it's always a time to get connected. If you have a specialty or a skill, consider how to build up that skill, because state sanctioned violence is seeking to isolate you from your community and bastardize or exploit that skill so that you assist with imparting violence against folks. Yeah, my closing remarks is abortion is still legal in Indiana. If you are in need of services for an abortion, please hit up the Hoosier Abortion Fund and we'll do our best to make sure that you have the resources that you need to get the care that you deserve.
Period. I think Jess already answered this question about what activism or organizing curricula do you recommend. One that I recommend for folks who are interested in like community governance and solidarity economy is reaching out to the Highlander Center, either applying for their solidarity economy fellowship or doing their solidarity economy workshop. It's really good and really helping to center and hone in on what exactly your politic is. I agree that political education is always the way to go. Here at Official BLM Memphis, we offer a fellowship that if there are folks in Memphis who are thinking about like how do I radicalize my politic and really join the study and struggle. Like what does that look like? We can definitely reach out to me or Official BLM and look into doing that. I know Indy has like different cop watch programs, but those are open to like everybody, right? Like people who are not in Indy can sign up.
Yes, if you're not local to Indiana, you're welcome to sign up. We do vet the list, so we will ask for like your address, your social media, things like that, so that we can make sure that you're not a troll or an anti or a federal agent. But you're welcome to participate in it. Also, look into locally if your local grassroots chapter or organization might also have cop watch, street medic training, stop the bleed, all of those additional trainings as well. But yes, we'll be announcing our next cop watch training that's open to the community. It's virtual for now. Closer to the time that HB 1186 might be passed into law, we will be hosting it in person in or around the State House.
Bit. I appreciate that, Jess. And the last thing I'll say is that we also want to make sure that we have all eyes on Atlanta right now. What's happening with Cop City is very dangerous, as we've seen with Louisville and how they're trying to do something similar and basically build a Cop City there. But we also know that folks like in Memphis here, our Memphis PD have trained with the Israeli Defense Forces, and they also have a similar program where they go over to Israel. And so we know that by having access to Cop City, that they would go there and receive those same trainings. And that's not what we want. We want to demilitarize the police. We're trying to teach them. We're trying to remove the amount of power they have and the amount of access they have to citizens through these different legislations. And by passing like our pretextual stop ordinance, it will reduce about 40% of access they would even have to pull citizens over. And so we want to reduce the amount of contact they're having, not increase it. And that includes supporting Cop City, supporting the calls to action they have going on right now. They're asking folks to call Nationwide Insurance and their VP because they're the ones who are insuring the Atlanta Police Foundation and Cop City. And so I've retweeted that on my Twitter account. I know BLM Louisville's going to retweet it. And Jess might retweet it, but you can't really follow Jess like that because her shit private. But
she shares it on BLM Indie page.
Okay, yeah. So it'll be there. I shared all those call to actions, and I'll also be posting them throughout the week. So join that phones app, and then one other tangible thing y'all can do is write a political prisoner. There's one in Atlanta right now, a young Black man who was not even protesting; he was just in the vicinity and got hemmed up. And so I went and bought some postcards. I ain't never bought a postcard in my life, but I bought a postcard because I know what it feels like to be in jail and not know when you gonna get out. And so being able to support Black folks in their time of need is like the most tangible thing that we can do right now, I feel. And so I wrote some postcards, and I hope that y'all will too.
I'm gonna leave with naming that, yes, just the same way that they've named how people come into this space. We absolutely take studying and knowing our history very much important, because you do not know where you are going. If you do not know where you are coming from, you are bound to make the same mistakes, because fascism and corporatism loves having some circular shit. We trying to get free, y'all. This not really not no game. And so I always begin everybody with a pedagogy of press. While it's a hard read, I always let people know that you got to understand, you need to move out of the way of the car and move over here. That it is written from the Brazilian aspect. And while we all live in Pan Africa in some type of way, we are the only nation of Black folks who have not fought for our liberation, won, and developed a really obtuse revolution. From revolution, you then build different ideals. And so the ideals that Paul Freire is talking about in the pedagogy of the press is looking at the entire system of what the transatlantic slave trade has done to us and what it has built out. Nations of fear, groups of of folks just really condemning themselves to police states and living like this. And you do not have to feel overwhelmed by that. So they have it on video, they have broken it down, they have readers, and readers are pieces that help you ask the questions around what the information is that is in the reading. And the reason why we lift up reading more so than like listening as well is it gives you a little piece of calm. Don't feel overwhelmed that you may not be taking things in right away. Take in what you can, take a break, come back to it. There's no deadlines on reading or anything like that. Any book reads that we have, we are not looking at like you finishing and having this direct piece of stuff. Um, the information is what I'm trying to say. I'm out of breath. The other thing that I want to say is these learning spaces that we are naming, they are very, very much easy to get into. They happen consistently, and consistency is the biggest part of our movement that we rely on to be safe, having consistent spaces, moving in a consistent way. And so learning spaces happen every month, every week. Some of these spaces are public. You will have to register because they will vet. We do get agents. We do get people who aren't there yet and want to disrupt in the way that they can. Some folks are just moving in crisis and might mean well. What we are trying to do is make sure we are prepared and make sure that we take care of ourselves. We keep us safe. So another book that I want to lift up is The Body. Oh, Rest as Resistance. I was going to say that all the way wrong. And what it means to not feel guilty about taking a break, what it means to not feel guilty about taking a nap, being restful, drinking water when you think about it. Don't feel shame that you're not taking in as much of the nutrients that you need to. Do it when you can because this world is not even built on taking care of ourselves. It's built on labor. Fuck that shit too. I mean, it's cute, you know. Make sure we compensate it. Feel me? All right. All right. What we trying to do? Come back next week? We try. We try.
We back. We back next week.
All right. And we're gonna try to have Zelly with us from New Jersey. Our homie is holding it down up there in a really important conversation of what it means to organize street resistance, but also street healing teams and rapid response teams. So we'll see y'all next Wednesday. We need an outro.
Black love and liberation. That's the outro. You know, stop Cop City to the Cop City stop. Stop Cop City to the Cop City stop. Something along those lines.
I tried to do the skip thing, my knee hurt. Okay. All right, bye.